Okay, hello everybody. It's me, Tammy Devine, here with another episode of Faithful Founders. I love this show so much, and I love my little graphic here as well. um, it's exciting for me to be able to showcase faithful founders. These are Christians who um, just love the Lord with all their heart and who are entrepreneurs and they're creatives, they're innovators, and they want to do kingdom business, right? They're putting out the gifts and talents that the Lord has given them to help others. And I just love showcasing the different people, man, the amazing stories that we have had here on Faithful Founders. It's just so much fun for me. So I want to introduce you to today's Faithful Founder. And let me just show you a quick picture of him. This is Tony Bradshaw. He is the founder of Purpose of Wealth. And he does a lot of things, actually, and I'm excited for him to be able to share that with you. But really, um, Tony, I think that you really care about the financial life of Christians out there. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Not just that, but I think as I've grown and, came from a lower income family and didn't have money, and I started my journey at 25, which I'm sure we'll talk about. What I've come to realize is that the enemy that we face every day, he knows how to manage finances. And
Mm.
and let me tell you, the people that serve him, they know how to manage finances. And they're doing a very good job of using their money and those finances to create the world that we're living in today. That's a part of it. It gave me new perspective on Ephesians 6:12, which for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, or against principalities, against the rulers of darkness in this world. And when I understood that, how this money and this stuff is structured, I understood that verse a lot more clearly. And sadly, Christians, and I was guilty as anyone, do not manage their money well, and that's a big thing for me and where my focus is these days.
I think it's so important what you said there because I think that there are people out there watching that are going to be like, what? People who serve the enemy, people who serve Satan. You're telling me people are out there actually saying like hail Satan and stuff like that. I mean, can you go deeper into that because it's real, whether people want to believe it or not. It's
Yeah,
real. There
yeah,
are people serving the devil
yeah,
intentionally.
it's absolutely, yeah. And you know what? I'm kind of sad. I was very ashamed to say that. I'm 52 now, and I was 46 and clueless. Like, honestly clueless. I grew up a Christian. I was saved when I was 9 years old. My parents got saved when I was 6 years old, and I've been in Christian schools from second grade all the way through high school, and then went off to college. Went to a very renowned college for Christian education, Pensacola Christian, Florida. Very good college education. I've worked with people with master's degrees, and my education has been competitive with all the everybody I've ever worked with. It's been very competitive. So I felt like I got a decent education. And then as a professional, I got into Christian business, working with Mr. Dave Ramsey out of Nashville, Tennessee. Phenomenal Christian organization. No perfect organizations out there, but that was a really, really good one. I spent 15 years there. But then when I left in 2016, I feel like the Lord started revealing to me kind of like the tapestry, pulling back the curtain on the world and the way it really works. And, working at Dave's company, one thing I realized while I was there, I'm like, we're a very successful company. We were about 500, 600 employees at the time I was there. I'm like, this is one of the largest Christian companies in the United States. Therefore, it is one of the largest Christian companies in the world. And I am one of the top leaders at one of the largest Christian companies in the world. And that weighed on me pretty heavily because I'm going, I have a tremendous amount of responsibility in this organization. And some things I did well, some things I did poorly, right? But I made some bad decisions. But what I realized is there was a responsibility there. And then when I got out of the organization, I think I got a little bit of breathing room, and instead of being in the corporate structure. And that's when the Lord really started revealing to me how the enemy has really set things up, a system. And, and that's what people have to understand is that the world runs on systems. Like when you think of a car runs on a system. You run your house. If you run your house, well, your house is based on a system, right? You got chores, you got dishes, you got everything needs to be done. The world is the same way. And the financial system is the same way. The current system we live in is not a God honoring financial system. And even the money guys today don't really understand that. And God's been revealing that to me. But when you talk about the people that serve Satan, it's very easy to see. And until I started seeing this and the Lord revealing it to me, I was very unaware. But it's very easy to go out and search one of your favorite celebrities. I don't care who it is. Go try one. Somewhere out there, they have said at one point or another, and it has been caught on video and it has been released, that they say, I sold my soul to the devil.
It's like a requirement almost.
It's a brand. And the way the system is set up, Tammy, once they start to understand this, is there are rituals, and they have to go through these rituals. And that is one of those rituals where they have to publicly, just like we as Christians, what do? And it's supposed to be our thing. You're supposed to get baptized. That is a sign to the world that you are baptized in Christ as a believer. And that is a biblical thing that's taught. They have their own set of rituals, and that is like one of those rituals where they have to declare it. They have to declare their allegiance, but go research anybody. I mean, even people that you think are really good people, and they, at their hearts, they really are, but they get sucked into the money and the power and the influence, and to grow their careers, and they have to go do that. So, Katy Perry, you'll find a video of her. You'll find a video, I hate to say it, but of Kevin Hart. He says it. Snoop Dogg, like you can name just about anybody and go search for them. You're going to find them at some point or another declaring this kind of allegiance where they've said that. So, but yeah, just go research it. And, but a lot of your power players, influencers at the very, very top. Now, I'm not talking about like small mom and pop type people, but your really big ones. And there are some people, like I would tell you from experience, because I've been very close to Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a God honoring, God fearing, Jesus Christ following man. So even though he has a tremendous amount of influence, he hasn't, to my knowledge, been compromised. But I know from knowing this system or learning about this system that there are people that are influencers. I won't mention any names that are in his circle. Now, whether he's aware of that or not, I can't say. Probably not. But that's how the enemy works, right? He's a deceiver and an influencer. And so that's the way it works.
Infiltrates, and his people infiltrate sometimes Christian organizations and get into the circles of very powerful people, I think is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's compromising. Yeah. So, and that's one of the things is you go, okay, this goes back to Ephesians 6:12, which I mentioned earlier. We as Christians get caught up in this ethereal mindset of Satan's kingdom, and the world will go, oh, yeah, Satan's influencer. He's got principalities. They exist in the demonic. The only way you can rule a kingdom is to have servants. It's the only way. So once you understand that principle, you go, oh, these aren't just spiritual influencing. These are manifested in a physical realm. And just like you and I worship Jesus Christ and serve Jesus, he's our king. There are people like us who do the same thing for Lucifer. Throw some names out there. They pledge allegiance to this system. And the thing that Christians don't understand, and God, when I started teaching this a couple of years ago, is that people don't, as Christians, we don't understand the warfare that we're in, right? So when you go and I'm sure everybody that's listening to your show will understand and hear this, is that when Satan took Jesus up on the mountaintop and said, hey, the temptations of Jesus, right? And he says, if you bow down to me, I'll give you this kingdom as far as you can see. As far as you can see. I'll give it to you. Just bow down to me. And Jesus's reply was, you serve the God, and him only shall you serve, right? What he didn't do is he did not deny Satan's authority to give him that kingdom.
Wow.
His answer was, you serve only God. But he did not deny and say, Satan, you don't have the power to give me that kingdom.
Wow.
He didn't say that. So the Bible already acknowledges in multiple ways Satan's authority in this world in today. But the only way you can exert authority is through servants or minions or people that
So,
that implement, that implement your power. Like that's
yeah.
the only way that happens. And when you understand that structure and those kingdoms, and you start pulling back the tapestry or the historical lessons that are out there, it gets pretty dark. It's really dark.
What do you say to the people that are like, oh, woo-hoo, this is Illuminati conspiracy theory?
That's a good that's a good question. Here's what I've wrestled with over the last several years, and the longer I've gone down this track in learning and just absorbing information, one of my prayers has been like, why, God, why are you revealing this stuff to me? Why do I keep going to the coffee store and meeting people who understand this, who would tell you at different levels what I just said? Like today, I went to the car store to look at a car for my daughter, looking at a Kia. Never been on a Kia car lot in my life, and never even considered getting a Kia till we started looking for one. Yeah, never looked at it before. Drive on this lot, start talking to this car salesman about what's going on in the world today. And instantly, everything I was saying, he understood it, he knew it, he connected with it, questioned none of it. So why did he already know what I just said and connect with it? Because there's a convergence of consciousness going on right now, that God is revealing truth to certain people. So that hurts me a little bit, because I have a men's group I'm in. Every Friday I go meet, or every other Friday I go to this men's group. I can't talk about this stuff in that men's group full of these Christian leaders. It's not received. And so I wrestle with, God, why are you revealing things to me that you're not revealing to these other, what I consider strong Christian men? And what I come back to is something very simple, which is this. This is what I had to get to, and where I think the Lord spanked me a couple times because I was wrestling with it so much. And it was this.
That.
You ready?
He does that.
Tony, here's what he said. Tony, you worry about you and let me worry about him. And I won't put any names in there, but he said it to me a couple times. Let me worry about him and you worry about you. Right. And then I was like, all right, I'm not like, I have to be focused on what God's put in front of me. And I think we all have to do that in this season, because you can get distracted and get consumed with something that's not relevant to where God's got you. And that's the biggest thing, is to keep your eyes on Jesus and to go there. But we're living in crazy times, Tammy. I mean, nobody can deny that. Some people are waking up in these times and going, wow, like we just literally shut down the entire planet for like a year, and like supply chains are gone, commerce is gone. Now we've got food issues, job issues are coming down the pike. You've got quite a few financial guys, Robert Kiyosaki and many, many, many others, who are talking Great Depression right now. The second Great Depression is on its way. The news for the last year was like, there's no recession. There's no recession. What did the Biden industry do? Or the Biden administration.
Hey, that was a good Freudian slip, though, I think.
Yeah, the Biden industry with the money made from Ukraine.
And,
But, and he's not the only one, but
right.
where that goes is lost my train of thought. So,
well, yeah, it's about the systems out there, and how the conspiracy people thinking that this is all a conspiracy theory, are need to open their eyes, and that God is revealing things to some people and not to others, which like maybe like you, but as someone who's been in journalism, Tony, I am like, when I learn something new, I want to go and spread it everywhere and tell everyone, like, hey, this stuff is happening. There are people, serving Satan, literally. There is Illuminati stuff, literally. There is all, and it's not always received. And even the people that I love the most look at me like I am nuts, that they just can't get away from me fast enough. And it sounds like you've had that same experience.
Yeah, they call that cognitive dissonance. It's when you're hearing something that is so foreign to your line of thinking that your consciousness can't even digest it or absorb it. It's just too contrary, because and that's a form of brainwashing, right? So what they say, the TV, the television, they're telling a vision to you.
And
And that's the way it was
programming.
programmed.
Yes.
Yeah, I turned the TV off. I don't know if this is spirit led, but I was a big entertainment guy. Like I literally got sucked into Netflix. I got sucked into Amazon Prime. I mean, I literally was watching. If I wasn't playing video games, I was watching something on television. I was still studying and learning stuff too, but I mean, literally thousands of hours burned in entertainment. My dates, this is a story I haven't told in a while, but my wife and I, before we got married, every weekend we were at the movie theater. Like every weekend, that was part of our courtship. We'd go out, eat dinner, and go to the movies. And then after we got married, we kept doing dinner at the movies, dinner in the movies, every week. And I had a vision one night, a dream, and it was a really freaky dream. And I don't know if you have these where you wake up and then you're going, that was not a normal dream, right? There was something in there, and you can feel it in your spirit. And you're going, there was a message in there. What was that message, right? And this particular one was kind of freaky because I was in a movie theater, and in the movie theater, it was different than most movie theaters. It was a movie theater. The movie theaters were segmented by curtains, and the chairs were like sliding chairs. They weren't fixed chairs like in the movie theater today. They were sliding chairs. And my wife and I went in, we sat down, and these movie chairs started sliding. So they weren't fixed. So all of a sudden they started sliding. But at the bottom of the movie theater, where the floor slid down into the wall where the screen was displayed, there was a huge fireplace. Huge fireplace. And as we're sliding down, you're going, oh my gosh, like there's a huge fireplace at the end of this slide. So we got to the bottom of the fireplace. Yeah. And I was able, as a husband, I was able to brace ourselves. We didn't go into the fire, but I took my wife by her hand, and we're sliding over past this fire. Wow. And when I woke up from that dream, the word that I got from that was, Tony, you're building your marriage in a way that's not strengthening your marriage. And if you keep doing it, when the hard times come, it's not going to survive. You're going to be you're in the fire. And at that point, I started shifting how we started doing our date nights, how we started interacting as a husband, and a wife. And it was a pivotal moment for me from that dream, because I felt the pressure, and I think we get communicated to sometimes in those ways when we need to be. But that was a big shift for me. But it shifted me away from entertainment. And then several years ago, I just turned the television off, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. We still watch some. My daughters and I are watching some shows today. They'll binge watch some stuff. But we're very much aware of the entertainment industry and how it has been used to influence the way people think and culture. And you can't deny that today. You can't. There's a wonderful woman named Tina Marie Griffin. She's a friend of mine here in Nashville, Tennessee, spent 15 years in Hollywood. She has a brand called Counterculture Mom. I probably shouldn't even mention her. She's blacklisted on many of the media channels because she's speaking so much truth about how entertainment is being used against the morality and to corrupt the system in the way people think, and to harm people in general. But she's a wonderful person. If you want to go down that road a little bit more, she's very
I do. I want to meet her, Tony, because it sounds like she and I are probably on exactly the same page, because that's why DFE got started. Divine Family Entertainment was because I was moping around, looking at all the dark and twisted and ugly entertainment out there. And even the news is terrible. It's just, we're being spoon fed so many lies. And I was just kind of complaining to God about it. And he reminded me that he'd given me 25 years worth of media experience, and I could literally do something about it and place the vision of Divine Family Entertainment on my heart, because I just felt like we needed to do better. And everything that we're taking in, movies, shows, entertainment, all of that was causing damage to all of our hearts and minds. And I think that's a powerful dream that you had there. My goodness, it sounded like God was trying to hold you responsible, and that you were you and your wife were kind of sliding towards hell with the kind of content that you guys were taking in. And it's amazing and wonderful to hear that there are Christian men out there like yourself there that was aware of what was happening, that the Lord revealed this to you, and then you pivoted You made a shift, you made a change to protect and guard your wife and your marriage. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, disclaimer now, I didn't make all the right decisions. I just made the right decision in that moment. And yeah, I went off the rails pretty badly. Not I was several years after that, but fortunately I was able to recover. And we've been married 25 years. Let's see, what is it this year? 25 years this year in October. So
Oh,
but yeah, but it was, years probably like, let's see how long ago. I'd say probably around 13 to 17 were really, really rocky. And a lot of it my fault. And but we put the work in. It's talking about that just for a minute, Tammy. I grew up. I got my first kiss when I was 23 years old. I was trying to save my first kiss for my wife, and so I
uh,
was praying. Yeah, I prayed for her since I was about
that's
9 years
sweet.
old.
That's
Yeah.
different these days. That's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah, right. Yeah, and I told my boys that too. So I think I've got one son. He's 23. He hasn't kissed his first girl yet. And then I had one of my other son. He had dated a young lady, and she stole his first kiss. But everybody's got their own morality and where they place it. But for me, that was very important. And the first kiss at 23, and I met my wife at 28. We got married, and I was saving it for her. But I didn't make all the right decisions in that moment. But here's the thing: when people's marriages, and this is what I'm hoping to inspire some people who are watching this today. I talked to some of my friends who get into marital trouble, and I'm like, man, have you tried counseling? That's the question. The answer almost always is, yeah, we tried it for 3 months. It didn't work. I'm like, well, how often did you go? Well, we went once a month for 3 months. And I'm like, that ain't gonna work, dude. Like, that's not commitment. So we did marriage counseling after about 15 years of marriage. And when I was trying to, recover some mistakes that I'd made, and we walked in the marriage counselor first session. And after the first session was over, and this was me because I'm like, hey, baby, let's go get some marriage counseling. Actually, it's 18 years of marriage. Let's get some marriage counseling. And she's like, I'm not sure I want to go to marriage counseling. It means I got to air out all my, issues. And she was afraid of being judged and stuff. And I'm like, look, do you want the next 18 years of our marriage to look like the last 18 years? And this
Wow.
wounded girl, young lady, you call a young lady. I say that because we all are children at heart. And some part of us never really grows up, I think. And she looked at me, she goes, no, I don't want that. I don't want the next 18 years to be like the last 18. I'm like, then we need to go get some help. Let's go
Wow.
get some help. And we,
Yeah.
at the end of that session, the guy looked at us and said, when would you guys like to come back? And I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Well, you got open next month. My wife was looking at me. She turned and looked at him eye to eye and says, what do you have open next week? And we started weekly marriage counseling. We did that for about 6 months. And then we took a break. I needed a break because I was the one that screwed everything up. So I had to take the brunt of the marriage counseling and get so there's a lot of judgment, and
Tony, are you
face the
able to
fact.
give any kind of detail? No judgment if you can't, but are you able to give any kind of detail at all about some of the mistakes?
Oh
Just to,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't mind doing that. I know if God uses our stories and redeems them. Um, yeah, the first thing is, I just was at first I was very judgmental of my wife. We grew up very differently. I'm a much more of a go-getter, business focused, go get things, very empowered mindset. And some of this is that I'm going to share has been learnings because we've been in marriage counseling now for about 9 months, weekly again for 9 months. And it's been different. The first triage of marriage counseling we did was to get me back off the ledge because I was really close to just like, hey, let's just wrap this thing up, move on. But I knew
are you
wasn't what
talking
God had for me.
like you were close to divorce? Is that what you're saying?
Well, half of me was okay. I wouldn't say I wanted it, but half of me was okay with it. The other half of me was holding on to God's promises and what God had for me because I knew that when I prayed for my wife as a kid, I prayed that he would bring me the woman he wanted me to have because I knew his choice would be better than mine. And so I
Mm.
surrendered my choice. And I think God gave me the woman that he wanted me to have. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. But the initial problems we had was I was too judgmental of her and what she brought to the marriage versus what I brought to the marriage. And so there was a lot of misalignment. I was not very, I was a young guy. My parents had a good marriage, but they did not have what I would call a relationally strong marriage because they were very damaged from their childhood. Very lot of parental family issues, and they did much better for me than they experienced. So they made a huge leap forward for me to have a good childhood, whereas they did not. And so they provided me really well, but they still brought in relational issues that I picked up. So very judgmental at the beginning. My wife is, if you could be more like opposite, like you would probably not find a person more opposite in a lot of ways, but we shared a couple of things in common. So that judgment eventually grew and grew and grew to a point where I started, going off the rails, and I ended up having at first an emotional affair. And that the emotional side of it was bad enough, but eventually after I think a year, it got a little physical, and a year later it got a little bit more physical. And then God stepped in and really broke it up. And the whole time I was in the middle of that, it was like living like two different lives. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. So like half of me was holding on to God for the future and what he had planned for me, and I did not want to surrender God's plans for me. But the other half of me was rejecting what God had for me and wanted what I wanted. And it latched on to all the discontentment. So there was the pursuing of God's plan. And then there was this other half of me that was pursuing my own desires. And those two were in constant conflict. And I literally became two people. And it just, it didn't start that way. It was started like kind of innocent and then grew into that. And then the thing I would love to share is in the middle of that, because I grew up in a legalistic kind of faith-based, very 10 commandment, burn in hell if you break the law kind of thing, and legalistic. And what I found in that season of life for me was that God was more real and present in those 3 years where I was, half of me was in rebellion, where he was lovingly just pursuing me and pulling me back and saying, hey, this is not good for you. This is not what I want for you. This is not what I have planned for you. And it's going to hurt you. And it was constantly this affirmation and this, but he didn't mix words with me either. There was a point, people may think I'm crazy here, but there was a point where I was going to have a meeting and with this person I shouldn't be meeting with. And I got into a cab, and with a very odd, and as soon as I got into the cab, I was like, oh, there's something different about this. This feels weird. Like I could feel something different when I got into this cab. And this guy started talking to me, and he was a little bit slumped down in the car, black hair, dark, kind of like goth kind of feel to him. And we started talking about spiritual stuff in the car. And as I got out of the car, he flipped around. Say that again?
Was this like an Uber driver?
No, it was just a regular cab. It was a cab. It was not an Uber. Yeah, this is pre-Uber, like 2015. Okay. But he flipped around and handed me a card, like a business card. And it was really weird because he flipped around over the seat, handed the card back to me as I was getting out of the car, and I read this thing. And it was the words I remember on this card. We still have it today. It's around the house, a souvenir if you want to call it. But on the card it said, the words on it that I remember were, "If you do this, you make me your enemy."
Whoa.
If you do this. And it was a warning. I truly believe there's a possibility that guy in that car was an angel, and it was a warning. It was a warning because as soon as I got in the car, knowing what spiritual sensitivity is today, I'm more aware of these things. And I got in this car and I'm like, something is weird about this. Like, this is just weird. And I had canceled. I actually had canceled. So I'd called the cab and then canceled the cab, and the cab showed up anyway. And it was this guy. It was this guy, and he handed me this card. And then, being stupid, I just went ahead and acted out anyway. But a little bit later, I surrendered. The Lord stepped in, intervened, and I think
through other people. Did he intervene through like some hardcore brothers and sisters that were like,
well, there was, kind of, what happened was a friend of mine stepped in and started asking some questions. Something came up on his radar. And I bold-faced lied to him, but that set off a chain reaction to create some separation, and then that created separation between me and this other person. And then from there on, that gap had widened enough to where I had gotten my sanity back a little bit. Because what people don't understand is in your brain, And I've been learning about this stuff. You have like dopamine releases. So you think you've got this relationship that's happening and all this stuff's exciting, but really it's chemical reactions in your brain, and you get these dopamine releases. So when you get around this person that makes you feel that way, it's very similar to having a drug addiction. And so when you go into these kinds of relationships, apart from your marriage, they're fake relationships, and they create this dopamine hit in your mind that causes you, like, almost I don't want to say controllably or uncontrollably, but people who haven't been in it, they don't understand as much, I think, because there's a lot of judgment. Before this happened to me, I mean, I was a virgin at 28 when I got married. I was pretty clueless.
Awesome.
Yeah, and marriage, and so I'm like, okay, Christian guy, first kiss when he was 23, kissed 3 girls before he kissed his wife when they got engaged. You would look at that and go, wow, well, how did that happen to this guy, right? Like, how did it happen? I was a
Can
little
happen
bit,
to anybody.
yeah, it's just perfect season. And Satan knows, Satan knows what your weaknesses are. He's going to throw stuff at you, and I went through that. But anyway, recovery wise, my off the rails ended in like 2017. Then I was on a recovery path. A year later, my wife, through circumstances, God revealed it to my wife. I had to, basically come clean on everything. And then that was you can imagine how rough that was. Here I was, married for, was that 18? That would have been, let's see, 18, 17, probably close to 20 years then. And yeah, 20 years. And then she's finding out about it, but she's also got all this anger from how I've treated her for this, 18, 20 years of marriage. So she's not only dealing with what I did and I had to complain, but I'm going to tell you let me tell you that story. I woke up, I was napping after church one day, and I woke up. Actually, she woke me up. She hit me on the arm and said, wake up, we need to talk. So I'm having a nice, peaceful nap, male nap, daddy ate some food and he's sleeping. And she hit me on the arm. Yeah, she hit me on the arm, woke me up. I immediately knew something was wrong. And she goes, she says, I get up and came over there, to sit on the bed. She goes, you got something to tell me? Very aggressive. And I'm like, what do you know? And she goes, don't you, what do you know me? She said, I want to know everything. Tell me everything. And at that moment, the Holy Spirit said to me, this is it. Let it all out.
Wow.
This is it. Let it all out. And I sat on the edge of my bed and like a little boy. I mean, this was like, I was like a 5-year-old kid getting disciplined by his dad. Like it was bad. It was probably the lowest point of my entire life. And I told my wife everything I had done and like confessed it. And it was, you can imagine, you expect a woman to be angry. Yeah, she was angry. She was very, very angry. It was very humiliating for me. But the thing that I did in that moment, I didn't try to defend myself. I just surrendered. Like I just surrendered to everything. I'm like, you know what? I messed up. And I've got no defense here. I surrender. I submit to everything. And from that moment forward, the healing began both for her and for me, which was, a 5-year ago process. But I had to surrender. And I called my pastor immediately. He came over. I appreciate him coming over, but for any man that's going through this, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think pastors are a lot of help. Pastors are going through some of the same problems that men are, and they don't know how to fix them. And that's why the church is so.
Yeah, that's a big statement. Wow, because we tend to put our pastors, we tend to put our pastors up on a pedestal. Like, oh, they're our pastor. They're living better. They're doing better, and they're human too, aren't they?
Yeah. These are big problems that we're facing. Let me tell you, the enemy knows how to do it. He's been doing it for thousands of years. You look at entire societies are brought down by their morals. When you look at, and that's what's happening with the U.S. today. When you go, okay, well, how does that? It's a plan. It's a structured plan. It's all intentional. Hugh Hefner, Larry Flint, the guys that kind of introduced pornography on a major scale, they're all part of the club. We talked about it earlier. They're in it. They're in the group. They're a part of it. It's all part of the structure. The enemy knows that sexual deviancy and going off the rails is what's going to, it's going to corrupt society, break down relationships, break down marriages, break down families. It's all part of the plan. And I fell into that. What I realized at that time, Tammy, and I didn't understand this, has all been part of the journey I think God's had me on. But the day we're born, the very day we're born, even before that, it's actually the day you're conceived. You got a target on your back. We all do. That's why you have the abortion process. That's, you know, when you really understand this, when you really understand it all, you're going, was it 50 million babies been aborted in America nowadays? You know, and
Yeah.
we can go into all the statistics and stuff like that. There's been more, you know, saying this, there's been more African American babies aborted now than there are alive African Americans in America. Like,
That
think
are
about
born.
you would
Mhm.
literally have 80 million, 100 million African Americans in the United States if not for abortion right now. You only have about 40 million right now. So
Mhm.
the numbers are that drastic.
And Tony, it's all really connected when you look at it at the end of the day, like and this is going to hurt some people's feelings, and I'm sorry, but I think it's factual that with all the abortions that are going on and the low birth rate in the U.S., like that kind of thing causes economies to crumble, and so I think that gets tied into the immigration situation as well, you know, because they need replacements,
Yeah.
right? Replacement workers as well. And it's just all so ugly.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the number. It's 2.2. That's for a civilization to maintain itself. It has to have a birth rate of 2.2 people per family, new children. And in the U.S., it's much lower than that. I think I forget which community, but you got three major segments, right? You got the African American community, or the Black Americans, and you got the white Americans, and then you got the Hispanic Americans, right? So the from what I understand, the white Americans are just a little bit under that ratio. I don't remember where the Black Americans are, but it's the Hispanic Americans that are still giving birth at a higher rate than 2.2. So their number actually brings the average up right to like 2.2 in the United States, and that's the Hispanic Americans. So yeah, that's what you're talking about, but you're exactly right. And if it drops below a certain number, then it's inevitable that society or that civilization will crumble. It's happened again and again and again, and the people know it.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying with the recovery, I surrendered. I talked to my pastor. He was very sympathetic to me, very supportive of me, but no help to me. Right. So then I went to, my wife told me to go talk to a friend of hers husband's who had been through something similar. I went to him that very night. So immediate action was what I did. And I sat down with him, and he was not mincing words with me. He's a very strong man. And just told me like it is, no sugarcoating it. And he said, you need to go see this guy. You need to see him this week, and you need to get in his program. And I'm like, done. I'm there. So on Tuesday, I met with this therapist. He said, you need to be in my men's intensive group this weekend. I'm like, I'm in it. I'm in it. So let's do it. That cost me $1,500, I believe. Then we went and met with him with my wife. And he said, this is a 5-year recovery program. You're going
Wow.
to be seeing me. And he says, that's if you don't relapse in any shape, form, or fashion. And he talked through like these are relapse steps, because it's basically called, for men, and small wonder, it's called sex addiction, right? And as men, we get targeted with pornography at a very young age. Now it's on YouTube. Like, my sons have been introduced to pornography via YouTube. YouTube, for people that are listening that don't know this, YouTube itself, its very own algorithms will put content in front of your children intentionally now to expose them to this stuff. So they can tell by surfing habits on YouTube who's over 18 and who's under 18. And then they will introduce these little threads of content to pull them a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And then they'll be getting into some stuff they should have never seen in the first place. And I never had exposure to that because we didn't have that technology when I was a kid. But that's the problem. So the program was 5 years. I had to be with a therapist once every 2 weeks. And then that was for a year. And then I got to back off of that a little bit. And I was in a men's recovery group for every week, still in that group. And what that helped me with, honestly, and I'm just sharing this picture because I think men need to hear this, is it helped me build deep relationships with other men who actually really cared about me. And that's not something that men are very good at. And so a lot of times we'll go through our whole lives. My dad was a great example of this. He's 72 years old, has no deep relationships, not one deep relationship. And
Oh,
he's
that's so
72.
sad.
Yeah.
That's sad.
And I think a lot of men would echo that. But yeah, that helped me break through. It took me about 9 months of being in that program, Tammy, to realize I was making phone calls because we had to make phone calls every week. And when I picked up the phone one day after 9 months, I'm like, oh, this is what support is. This is what support means. Because I actually am looking forward to make this call. I'm not just calling because I need to call because it's a requirement to be in the group. For the first time after 9 months, I'm like, this is what having somebody that cares about you on a deep, meaningful level as a man, this is what that means. And that was
Wow.
the first time that I had consciously felt that as a man. I had people that care about me, but I don't know if you're this way, but a lot of people I talk to, I had another friend because I was texting. After I learned this, I started reaching out to other men, and I'll just text certain friends of mine and say, hey, how you doing today? How you doing? Checking on. And one of my friends was going through a tough time with his wife. And he told me, he's like, Tony, you're the only one of all my friends that checked on me
Wow.
when I was going through this. And I'm like, it's important. It's
Mm,
important. And that's what we've got to change. That's one of the things we've got to change as men, is we've got to figure that out.
yeah. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and explaining that. And it sounds like, it continues to be a journey for you and your wife. But everyone always says marriage takes work, and it's
It does.
true. And it looks like you're putting in the work after you made some mistakes. And I think that is a beautiful testimony. And I think it'll inspire other people who are maybe, on the edge of making a terrible decision.
Yeah. I think the thing to leave off with there, Tammy, is don't let the enemy get your eyes on the negative, because you can't imagine how good your marriage can be when you're doing what you need to be doing to do the work. Once you do the work and get breakthrough, right? And I'll honestly tell you, like, my marriage is better now than it's ever been.
Wow.
25 years. But like, literally, I know what real joy is in my marriage. Like, I know there are times when I'm like, hey, I got to have more of you today, baby. We got to go do something. We got to,
That's
let's run and let's run to the convenience store and buy, a Pepsi for you. If you want a Pepsi, let's get a Pepsi, whatever it
that's
is. But yeah, you got to have more of it. So anyway, that's growth for me.
what's the name of the group? Are you able to say that's been helping you and supportive
Yeah,
of you?
yeah. There's not a lot of these groups across the country, which is sad because I think men need them. But the group that I'm involved in is a guy named Michael Christian, and his group is called Connection Therapy Group. And
Connection.
yeah, and he's expanding. He's actually a professor down at Trevecca Nazarene College as well. So he's educating the next group to kind of come up and learn what he's learned and what he's teaching. But he picks up people if somebody needs to do it virtually. There's a lot of people dialing in from across the country into his like groups and stuff.
What's
But
his name? Michael.
Michael Christian, Dr. Michael Christian.
Okay. I just want to put it on the screen there because if it helped you the way you're saying that it did, I think that it could help other people. Is it okay if I do that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, and I think the thing with men in general is we want to be powerful and strong and feel like we've got the world conquered, right? I was a high income earner. I led a team of 100 plus people. I
Wow.
have 6 children. I'd been married 18 years at that point. Actually, when I went off the rails, about 15 years. And I'm like, you know, it happens to the best of us, man. There's so many preachers out there that, we're your targets. Here's the thing. We have to understand that we have a common enemy. And yes, men make bad decisions. Yes, I made a bad decision. There's no doubt about it. But never forget that your marriage is targeted by, I'm going to say it. It's going to sound bad. It's the only way I can say it. An evil SOB. Like the devil is, it's evil. And he's got a bunch of people that are working with him that are doing his bidding, and they're just as evil and they want to damage. So your marriage and your children, like, they want to destroy it all. Like, that is the plan. You are made in God's image, pure and simple. And everything that represents God is, to them, it's apostate. Like, they want to destroy everything that's created in God's image, bar none. And when you understand that, you can, I think you can prepare yourself for it. But you can find a lot of grace for people. I think before I went through all this, I would have been more, I don't know that I was judgmental, but I was definitely like, oh, "Oh, I can't believe you did that," or, look down on people. The reality is I have so much more grace for people today than I ever had before,
Wow.
because I realize that we have a common enemy, right? And I'm going to do everything I can to help my brothers and sisters face this enemy that we share in common. And what does that look like?
That is awesome. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I think that for high performers, like yourself, and I feel like I kind of put myself in that category. Man, we want people just to see the best in us. We want people to think of us as awesome, and especially as like founders, right? And as Christian and faithful founders, we're creating, we're innovating, we're doing business out there. We want everyone just to see us as outstanding and doing excellent and all of that. But I think that often when we're able to show the problems that we're facing, that can be so beneficial to other people out there, to clients even.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the authenticity and the vulnerability is huge. I mean, it's taken me, obviously, this has been a number of years, like 5 years ago. And I knew that at some point that God would want me to share it. My wife does too. We just had to get to a point where, you have to get past that recovery phase and not start sharing your story, I think, too early. But God uses our mistakes, to encourage, and there's always a little bit of shame involved, but at the same time, the healing can't come unless you surrender, and you got to face it. You got to face it. You don't have to carry your baggage. You don't have to carry your baggage around forever.
That's right. There's forgiveness, and that's what the word, tells us all about. And that's God's grace. That's His love. We're gonna got. My sister said this recently to me, like, Tammy, don't worry so much about like the parenting situations that you find yourself in, especially. And I have a divorce story, which I never thought would happen, but I'm resonating with all the things that you're saying, Tony, because I've kind of lived through some of that myself. And but my sister said, so I've had struggles with, the marriage, and I had struggles. I'm having at times struggles with the parenting. And my sister said to me, Tammy, God is the absolute perfect parent ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his kids are jacked up. Like, his kids make so many mistakes, right?
There's
And
some
so
wisdom.
yeah, so I try not to beat myself up too much with all that, and just keep in mind that God is a redeeming God, and He's a forgiving God, and He can turn what the enemy means for evil into good. I just hold on to that. So, all right, let's get into the business part. We're going to start with the elevator pitch here. I'm going to show a graphic. So you're stuck in an elevator in a huge skyscraper with a potential investor in your business. Let's talk about what business you would, because I know you have several, and we'll get to that, but what business would you pitch to this person? And in 30 seconds or less, what's your elevator pitch? Tony Bradshaw, go.
Yeah. Let me tell you how I'm trying to develop a financial transformation system for cities. Do you want to be part of that? Do you want to help me create a society where poverty is a thing of the past, and where there's only two types of people in the world: millionaires and future millionaires? And what I mean by that is people that are financially educated and on a path to building wealth, because that's the kind of world I want to create. There's no reason for there to be hunger in the world. There's no reason for there to be 147 million orphans that are uncared for in the world.
Wow.
There's no reason for there to be almost 1 billion people going hungry every day. And definitely, we need to get rid of human trafficking and child trafficking. These are problems that can be fixed. And we can do that by creating citywide financial transformation systems. And what I mean by that, there's a wonderful book called Switch out there, Tammy, that it talks about how do you create massive change. You have to do it on a small scale because you have to create the model. And then once you create the model, you can replicate it and it will catch fire, just like say a forest fire, but it'll catch fire. And you have to build that system and prove that out. And that's out of Jim Collins. Part of that's out of Jim Collins' good, great book where you create what's called a flywheel. And you develop a system. So that's what I'm trying to do, is create a citywide financial transformation system here in Nashville. I know that I can't do that on my own. So I have to bring together the right partners, the right people, the right influencers, the right technology, so that we all work together on a common vision to go, what would it look like if everybody in Nashville had a millionaire plan like Tony Bradshaw did when he was 25, when he decided that he didn't want to live a broke lifestyle anymore, but he wanted to build wealth and become a millionaire by the time he's 40. So it took me 15 years. I think it's a little bit longer than it should take today, but I do think it's doable. And I want to create inside this system. I've got a lot of different components to it, Tammy. But one of those is I want to give children in this city a birthright from the day they're born. So I want them to be predetermined to be millionaires the day they are born. And I have a model to do that. And I want to bring partners along to be able to do that because I think it's a possibility.
Okay, that sounds good. But I have a big caveat here. I mean, just it's a big question, I think, that needs to be addressed, kind of like the elephant in the room, or shall we say the camel, where the where the word says it's easier for a camel to enter through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to go through to get into the kingdom of heaven. And if we're trying to make everybody into millionaires, we're trying to make everybody rich. And is that going to hinder them from getting into the kingdom of heaven?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first one is God's never going to give somebody something that's going to hurt them. It just won't happen. So like you said before, God's the most perfect parent there ever was. And we're flawed in our parenting as we model it. But the reality is we would not give our children a loaded 9mm or something like that. Like it wouldn't happen, right? God's the same way. He's not going to give us something that's going to hurt us. So this concept of, I'm sure you've heard this, prosperity gospel and stuff like that. I don't think that teaching is true. What happens is we get people that teach wealth and abundance, but I think they're only teaching pieces of it. They're not teaching the whole. And what I mean by that is this. There are definitely people who are blessed with abundance, right? Who have a calling for abundance on their lives. There are definitely those people. And there are definitely people, I believe, that have a calling to not have abundance. Okay, so that kind of disrupts my thing. But there's this sweet spot in the middle where you get to choose, right? And that's where you have to learn financial principles that actually you can apply to your life. Okay, and then go from there. But like I said, God's not going to bless you with something. So first you got to get your heart and your mind right. So I've never asked for a raise in my entire life. Not once. Never asked for a raise. I looked at my life growing up and I saw that my parents had a lot of addictions. I looked at just in general, my mom and dad were addicted to, when I was really young, my dad was an alcoholic. He got saved and quit drinking. My mom and dad were addicted to cigarettes. I was sent in as a child to buy cigarettes for my mom at the store.
Uh-huh.
She would wait in the car and I would go in until they wouldn't let children buy cigarettes anymore. And at times, I flushed her cigarettes down the toilet. I told her, no, I'm not going to go buy your cigarettes, because in my heart, I knew that those were not good for her. So I resisted buying them for her. So she'd have to get out of the car and go get her own cigarettes.
Good for you.
And then, but these things that are bad for us, we're not going to get those. So I've never been addicted to money. Like there are people that do get addicted to money. That does happen. But
Well, and that's what the Bible calls, the love of money, which is the root
Yep.
of all evil, right?
Yeah, and people misquote that verse a lot too. So the way people say it is money is the root of all evil. A lot of people misquote it. That's not true. For the love of money is the root of all evil is the Bible verse, and that's true. If you are a lover of money, then you're going to have problems because you're not supposed to be a lover of money. Money is just a tool, and if you use the tool properly, you can plant a garden, you can grow food, you can do the right thing, but you have to learn how to use the tool. And to use the tool properly, your heart and your mind have to be in the right place. And that means, like Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. So you have to have the priorities right. And then when you have those priorities right, you have access to other things. And you have to be looking for God's purpose. So I have an event called Purpose of Wealth. And it's really a threefold purpose of wealth is what I believe. It's enjoy life, help others, and serve God, right? And I think this is biblical, right? So when you look at all this stuff, you are right about it's hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven, but it's still possible, right? Because you've heard this taught in different ways. Preachers that mess it up say, hey, the needle is, it's impossible to go through the eye of a needle. Well, they're thinking about needles today, but you're talking about the gate that goes into the cities, and camels going through those. We can wrestle with all that, but here's where I go back to it. The founding fathers of the faith were all wealthy men. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were all wealthy men. Okay. What did the children of Israel take with them when they left Egypt? They took the Egyptians' gold. They took the Egyptians' gold. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the one that's really going to throw you for a loop. Okay. I may irritate some people who are watching podcasts. You know what? Jesus had some money. He had a little guy that walked around with him, and he carried a pouch of money.
Yeah, the betrayer.
Judas, but here's the deal. Judas was an accountant. He carried the money. He was a CPA. He had an accountant. So let me ask you, do you have so much money that you're walking around with an accountant? Do you have an accountant that you keep beside you that keeps your money? So I'm just saying that out there to put some food for thought out there. Now, God, I don't believe God's going to give you money if it's going to hurt you. So you have to work on that and work on the blessing of it. But the reality is, in my world that I look at right now, Tammy, I know when people go, why is the world so freaking crazy right now? Why is there so much? I'm going to tell you, because the wrong people got the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about earlier, they're the ones that control the money. They're the ones that control the power. They have the agenda. You want to know why society is so decadent and so right now? It's because the children of God are not stewarding their finances well. They're not. I was not at 25, and at times I probably could do better, even in the last 25 years, than I've done. I've done some good, some bad. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. But here's a key. When you look at the system, we talked about the system of society. How important is finance and money to your life? So check this out. You go to school from K through 12. You learn about math, English, and science. 12, 13 years of school, right? You go off to college. You got 4 more years if you get a bachelor's degree, 2 more if you get a master's, 2 more if you get a PhD, typically. So 8 years of college. So you've got 5 to 18, 13 years, another 8, 21, up to 21 years. And that's if you stop getting PhDs. At what point did the school system ever sit you down and teach you about personal finance? The average person is going to work between 100 and 150,000 hours of their lifetime work.
Wow.
And then you get to be 65, 70 years old and you're broke or you're living on government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. The math is ridiculous. So if you want to be good with money, you have to do one really simple thing. You have to take time to study money. So just like we learned about math, English, and science, we have to take time to learn about money, become astute with money. 10 talents, the 10 talents, when you tie that teaching together with the 10 parable of the 10 talents, you've got the guy with 1 talent who takes his money and buries it in the dirt and doesn't multiply it. The other guy gets 5, he multiplies it, makes 10. The guy that has 10 makes 20, right? So he multiplies it, doubles it, right? The problem with the Christians is a lot of us are using these teachings and this fear of money, love of money, as a covering, as an excuse for our failure of managing our money well.
Ooh, that was big.
And then
we use it as a cover.
Yeah, we use it as a cover to make us feel better about why we don't have money or why we're not stewarding our money or why we're not investing our money. And it's a mental heart thing. It goes back to a mental heart thing because you don't want to face the reality that, I'm a failure with money. It's okay. We all feel I was a failure with money. The difference is I said, you know what? I spent all my money last year. I made 39 grand. I spent all 39 plus 16 more. I'm $16,000 in debt after 1 year out of college. That's horrible. I can't do that ever again. Never again. So I started learning about money, started studying money. And within 90 days, I said, you know what? It's not that hard. I'm going to pay off my debt really fast. I'm going to start investing. Here's how I'm going to invest. At that point, I didn't know a lot about investing, but I knew a little bit. And it was enough to get me moving in the right direction. And that's the key, is to stop going in the wrong direction, get redirected in the right direction, and then continue your momentum, building your momentum over time. You don't have to have it all figured out when you start. You just got to get started, and then you'll improve yourself over time. And there's a lot of principles are wrapped up in that, but that's the key. And I think, when we're looking at the world today and going, hey, why is media? Why does the enemy? I'll be honest with you. Why does the enemy own Hollywood? Hollywood is where all the cultural shifting is coming from. Well, it's because the people who should be stewarding the money well, investing the money in the things that matter, the kingdom of heaven, right, is paved with gold, right?
It was
So
pearly.
listen, yeah. So listen to this. This is the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So if you got streets of gold up in heaven, and Jesus is telling you, pray God's kingdom down here on earth, what's that kingdom supposed to look like?
Wow.
I'm just trying to give people some food for thought here, right? So you don't have to digest my theology all the way. But what I'm saying is, if we're going to sit around and complain and wonder why the world's going down, to say it, hell in a handbasket, it's because part of that is because we're not taking dominion over the earth. I'm a true believer that when God gave Adam dominion over the earth, ever since that moment in time, Satan's been trying to usurp that authority that God gave to man.
Very much.
Jesus was the reassertion of that authority in the spiritual realm. Yeah.
The second Adam, yeah.
Exactly. And there's a lot more in that conversation we could go down on another show maybe. But we have to face that we have abdicated our authority and responsibility. And we have to, as Christians, stand up in our authority in the spiritual realm, but also in the physical realm. And the enemy, I hate to say it, they're better on the spiritual realm. They're better on the physical realm. They're beating us in the game on both realms.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I always say that we need to do, number one, Christians with money, it's time to get up and put your money where your mouth is. Christians with money, we are in a spiritual war and a culture war, and you've got to stand up and put your money into Christian businesses, invest in these faithful founders who are out there, trying to fight for the kingdom. It's time. It's time. It's beyond time. And I always say that, we're not doing as great of a job countering the world's messages as we could be. They are terrific at messaging and putting out a narrative. And everybody follow this, everybody do this, just look at the little things that they put around your, the little rings that they put around your social media, right? It's like, hey, everybody get on this bandwagon.
Well,
They're
it's called
messaging, and we need to get better.
Well, it's because they've got a plan and they understand top-down structure and all that. I mean, it's a concerted effort, and the Lord says, understand the weapons of warfare, and we're not. The Bible says, be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. Unfortunately, most Christians are harmless as doves. We're not wise as serpents. We're not, and we don't understand it, and therefore you lose the game. And I hate to say this about pastors, but I mean, I love my pastor. He's a phenomenal guy, and I believe he's anointed. But man, are we missing the boat, on teaching authority and kingdom stuff. It's a feel good message. It's not the real stuff in where we're at. But
it's milk, and it's time
yeah.
for potatoes.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, there needs. I believe God's lifting up a bunch of leaders to come out. There's some good ones out there right now. It's not like everybody's pathetic, but quite a few pathetic ones, and some that are being raised up.
And some have been infiltrated. Some churches have been infiltrated with pastors who are not there to edify us and point us to the good shepherd.
Yeah. I want to mention a company real quick. You mentioned put your money where you need to go. I'll be real honest. Like BlackRock, Vanguard. You want to know where some of this stuff's coming from. People have been really upset about Bud Light and all this stuff coming out of these different companies. Converse. If you haven't seen it, there's a very satanic Converse commercial that came out like last year. if you think it, I mean, it's like right in your face. But, if you're investing your 401k, it's going into BlackRock. You're investing your 401k, it's going into Vanguard. It's going into an enemy agenda. It really is. You need to find other places for your money. This is not financial advice. This is spiritual advice. And Seek Invest is a guy. We got a call with a guy named Todd. Let's see what his name is. Todd Roitfarb, yeah, and of a company called Seek Invest, and he's got a program where he actively creates investment portfolios, and there's a tool. So Seek Invest, I believe seekinvest.com, and look at doing it. Like these people, you can't make money off this way. These people have a. When I say these people, I'm talking about BlackRock. They have an agenda, and this agenda is not in your favor. It's not in the benefit of this country. It's not the benefit of anything. It's power structure. And that's where money is power and control. It all goes back to the same things. I mean, it's about the control, the power, the ownership.
They own, rule, and control the world, and we're David right now as Christians, and we need to rise up and rely on the Lord, work together. We really need to work together more, I think, as Christians, to have a bigger impact with what's going on out here. Okay, so let's start wrapping it up. I'm springing this on you. Usually I warn people about this, but can you think of any kind of breaking news that you can tell us about you and your company, or that's going on in the industry with finance that, okay, good.
Yeah, I got lots of things for you. So first of all, if you don't mind me sharing, my Purpose of Wealth event. This is an event I started 3 years ago. We've done 2 live ones here in Lebanon, Tennessee. You had to be on site for those. I'm doing my first ever.
I'm going to share the screen and show your website on that. Okay.
Yeah, go for it, Tammy. We're sharing. This will be the first ever virtual event I've ever done. I don't know why I've waited so long to do it, but this is my good friend Jeremy Newsom. He's the founder, CEO of Real Life Trading. He started stock investing when he was 6 years old after watching Forrest Gump. He talked his dad. After hearing Forrest Gump talk about Apple stock, he talked his dad into buying Apple stock. And
awesome.
Yeah, they made his first investment was $3,000. It turned into $12,000.
At 6 years old, he invested $3,000.
Well, his story is a little bit unique because his dad told him no. He says, Jeremy, that's just make believe. It's just the movies. And he goes, no, Dad, I really think we should do this. And his dad told him, said, son, you go find some money and I'll match your investment. Whoa. And we'll buy some Apple stock. So Jeremy went out, started picking blackberries and selling blackberries to the neighbors. And after a while, he came back to his dad and said, Dad, I got some money. His dad goes, how much money you got, son? And he pulled out, he said, I got $1,500. 6 years old with $1,500 in his pocket.
His dad selling blackberries.
his dad, here's his dad. His dad goes, oh crap. Because his dad didn't have $1,500. His dad picks up the phone, calls his brother, says, hey, I need to borrow $1,500 because I told my son I would match his. So they invested $3,000, just like 1996. And then it became $12,000. His dad told him, says, son, this is the best investment you're ever going to make. And his dad sold it all and gave him his money. Said, this is the best investment you ever make. And he goes, Dad, no, you were wrong. And that investment today, if he still had it, I think it would be $20 million today if his dad would have kept it. So Jeremy is teaching people how to invest. He's the biggest hearted guy you ever met in your life. He's doing so many amazing things. He's very like-minded with me as far as like, let's shake up this financial system. Yes, there are some people who have built some wealth, but there should be a lot more people building wealth than this. And it's because the system right now flows all the money up to a very, very few people. I'm talking about the big money, not the little money. Like I'm a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not a trillionaire, right? There's some trillionaires that aren't on the books. Mm-hmm. All right. Those are the people at the very top, but you don't get to know that they're trillionaires. You only get to see the billionaires. And so on paper, Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet, but he's not the richest man on the planet. Right. He is just the richest man that you know of on the planet. Yeah. And so that's a big deal. But yeah, that's event's a big deal. So that's August 25th. We're doing that specific event. Now,
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you talked about financial breaking news. This is a teaching I've developed over the last couple of years. And I think this is very factual, and I've shared it. I don't have it out in a document or anything, but it's basically this. Okay, you have to understand what real wealth is. Real wealth is primarily three things that have existed for thousands of years. All right. Being wealthy is not the stock market. The stock market is paper wealth. Cash is paper wealth. It's called fake money, fiat currency. It dies. That's why
It's
we're
an
seeing inflation.
IOU. It's an
Yeah.
IOU. It's not even
It's
real.
not money. It's not real money. So you have to understand this. Real wealth is three things. It's gold and silver. So you could say one thing there, gold and silver, commodity, hard money. It is land and real estate, and it is business that can actually provide a good service that people will pay you for. Those three things are what wealth is. That is it. That is the only form of real wealth. All three of those exist in the physical world. That is physical, real world wealth. When you get into the stock market or cash, those systems are created to exponentially increase the wealth of certain people, and those systems are worked. So we as people, humans, are taking our time, our life, and converting it into what's called a medium of exchange, which is a currency. Okay, that's money, right? And our money used to be tied to gold. It is no longer tied to gold as of like 1971. So it's worthless right now because it's not tied to anything in specific. Okay. So, and then they scale that. They're able to scale that money, and they use that scalability of that money, or that scalability of stock market, as we are putting money into 401ks, money into IRAs. They're pulling this money out on the backside of it, right? So they're shorting the stocks, pulling the money out, and they're buying more assets with it. So, or they're converting it into gold and silver, or they're buying up land and real estate. Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos are the largest, two of the largest. They're not the largest, but they're two of the largest landowners in the country. Warren Buffett, he's buying up railroads. He's buying up hard assets. Like all these companies, these guys at the top are buying all this stuff. So the reason that's important is because we're in the middle, and I hope I don't scare people too much here. We're in the middle of an economic transition. It's a global economic transition, but it is very much going to hit the USA. And you can go, I'm not the only one saying this. Go talk to Robert Kiyosaki, Jim Rickards. I mean, just Ray Dalio, any of these guys. They're much wealthier than I am, but they're going to say very similar things. And we are looking at an inflection point in history in the financial system. The last one of this scale, there was one in 1970 that was a gold standard shift. You go back to the Great Depression. There are very, very similar incidences and things that happened during the Great Depression that are taking place right now. And then that was the big governmental shift and financial shift in America's financial system back in the 1920s and 30s. And we're seeing the same thing take place today. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared.
Absolutely. I talked to my 9-year-old, and I started talking to him last year. Like, there's going to be a big Joseph sized famine. He knows the story of Joseph in the Bible. I'm like, it's coming, and we got to be prepared. We need to stock up food, and we need to stock up water and whatever else that we need. And because I know what you're talking about, that there is going to be a crash. And you know what? It's intentional. I believe it's intentional. I may be wrong.
100%. No, 100%. You're 100% accurate. It's all by design. It's not something that's just accidentally happening. It's a design. There's a plan around it, and it's all instrumented.
Yeah, into this one world government, what I call the new Tower of Babel. I'm like, all right, feels like end time stuff that we're talking about here. And so we just have to be prepared. And I love what you just said, um, about money, that we need to gather up real money, right? It's got to be gold or silver. It's got to be property. And what was the third thing?
Land and real estate businesses, just a business that can actually produce or serve. Yeah.
Right. Investing in businesses. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. So, mhm.
And just to say that, like when you look back, because some people may think we're crazy talking about it being an organized thing, the movement of produced goods and services in the United States has been moved over to China. It's been happening for over 50 years. We're just at the end of that. That cycle is now pretty much over. And so that is why you're seeing all of these things happen. This has been a 50, 70, 100-year plan that's been implemented, and we're just at the tail end of it. and that's why you're seeing all this upheaval. So a lot of people may not know this, but if you look into the Netherlands, anybody that's listening to this podcast, go check out what's going on in the Netherlands. The government's looking at taking away 3,000 farms away from the farmers. 65% of the Netherlands people are farmers, and they are constricting the food supply.
Yeah, this is what's also been happening in some African countries, in Zimbabwe and I think even South Africa. You know, they're getting rid of the white farmers there. Oh my goodness, based on their race, but they're the ones like that are producing a lot of the food. And so, what do you have as a result of that? Famine. There are
Mm-hmm.
people starving more than ever, which is
Well,
ridiculous.
yeah, and what you have to understand through this, and this is, I've got a visionary strategic mind on this stuff. So a lot of people go, "Oh, you're conspiracy, Dude, it's not conspiracy. It's strategy. It's a
Mm.
strategy. That's what you have to understand. There is a goal. When you have a vision and a goal, there's a strategy behind it, and you can see it play out as clear as day. But what happens? The next question you have to ask is, what happens when when you have food shortages and food constriction? What happens, Tammy?
War. I mean, people get angry and they're searching for food, trying to survive, and war breaks out. Yeah.
Yeah, you turn on people, you turn on each other. You don't have to, and this has all been done before. You just gotta go back and look at the French Revolution. I've studied that a little bit. I need to do some more studying on it. But the same model was used for the French Revolution to foment it and get it started. Same thing with the kind of the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks, and the same thing with the Red Army in China. So you're looking at the toppling of these government entities, these structures that were in place, and that's similar to what you're seeing now. It's very similar. And it's pretty widespread. We're not getting a lot of news in our news out of Europe, but for people that are looking in the European news channels, you can see some of this going on. There's a lot of riots and stuff going on in France, and a big one was what was it? Sri Lanka. Was it Sri Lanka that ran out of gas? So all the people in
So,
there, like, they had no fuel. I think it was Sri Lanka. I could be wrong. Maybe another place, but yeah, they had no. They're island based, and they had no fuel. So there was
mm.
no fuel, and they literally raided the presidential palace.
Yes, that's right. I
Yeah.
remember that story. Yeah, they burned it down, I think, or
Yeah, I'm not
something.
sure about that. I know the president fled, but yeah, we're living in these times, and people just need to prepare. I think for shows like you, and this is what I wrestle with is, I'm preaching a message of wealth and abundance, and then you got all this stuff going on. It's like, Lord, like, how are you like reconciling these two
Well, I
things? And I
think
don't have an answer.
how, as a Christian, how I look at this is, Heavenly Father, please allow me, when everything goes crazy, to be someone who can help and shelter and feed others, rather than being the one that has to go and flee to somebody else's place to be sheltered and fed. Help
Mm-hmm.
me be able to provide for other people, and don't let me have to be a burden on other people. And that's why, as a Christian, for my business, I'm not all about, oh, I want to get rich through Divine Family Entertainment. It's, let me steward this properly so that it does make money, it does create wealth, so that that wealth can help other people. At the end of the day, I feel like that's what the Lord wants to happen through DFE. And so just going to work towards that. Okay, as we close here, I want to show your book, that you have a book. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so a little story behind this, without talking too long, is I never really planned to go back into personal finance once I left it. I was with a certain gentleman for 15 years, working with Dave Ramsey, leading his digital business side of his things, and then left in 2016. And then God pulled me back into personal finance later that year. And then I was working for another guy, and then the Holy Spirit dropped this book on me one night. There's a whole long story about that. I don't have time to share, but yeah, and wrote this. And then, as God often does, not only did He ask me to write the book, 3 days later, He dropped on me, write it in 30 days.
Whoa.
And I was like, how do I do that? Because I'm working like 3 weeks in a different city. My wife's home with watching 6 kids. When I'm home, my kids are mauling me. I don't have time to write a book in 30 days. And then several days after he told me that, I got to process and think about we went camping as a family. I got let go from that job. That particular position was under investigation by the SEC, the guy that owned the company. And so the investor funding dried up. And I'm like, that was a May 31st, like 7 p.m. I got that news. I'm like, I'm going to write this book in 30 days. I'm going to do it in June. So I wrote 60,000 words in June of 2017. And the book itself, it's as personal finance books go, it's okay. There's other good books out there too. But what's a little bit different about this book, it's got what I call the 10 keys of the millionaire. 10 keys that you need to kind of break free from where you're at and build some success. The first 2 keys don't have anything to do with money. It has to do with life. First one is develop strong character, because you can't build or keep wealth if you don't have strong character. You need to have that. So I talk about character and what that means. And then the second one is maximize your time, because you can't, what you do with your time, everybody has the same amount of time. What you do with it is what matters. So, right. And then the third key is get money smart. So those 3 are what I call foundation items. Everybody starts with those 3, right? So I don't care if you're Bill Gates or you're Mark Zuckerberg or whoever you are, you have to go through those 3 to
Can you
get
say
to
that
that
again,
level.
just to make sure it gets into people?
Yeah. So first millionaire key is develop strong character. You've got to deal with your character issues. So integrity, responsibility, self-discipline, work ethic, and focus. Right. So those are the 5 I dealt with, because that my mom and dad instilled those 5 into me. I did not have to develop them. They kind of like self-developed because of my parents. They had those 5. The second one is maximize your time. So, a lot of kids today are stuck on video games and stuck on social media or entertainment. I burned probably, I did the math. I've probably spent 20,000 hours playing video games in my lifetime, in my 20s, my 30s, and part of my 40s. And fortunately, I was still working on developing myself, but I could have been much further along than I am. I could have been much more successful had I taken that time and done the right things with it. But as I can't cry over spilt milk, but that's a big one. So everybody has the same amount of time. It's what you do with your time that matters. And then the third one is get money smart, which we talked about earlier in the show. You got to study money. If you want to be good with money, you got to study money. And it's not just a financial literacy class that you get in one semester of high school. That's not enough. It's a lifelong journey. So you got to develop a habit of going, who am I listening to today? Who am I reading today? What am I studying today? What new thing did I learn that helps me become a better steward of the money and the resources that God's given me? And that's an effort. It takes effort. You have to do it. But when you talk about being rich or being broke, those are keys right there. Those 3 keys are going to be your foundation that allow you to actually build wealth and use that wealth for the kingdom. And let me tell you something. We didn't talk about this, but when you have money, I guarantee you that God is going to test you with it. He's going to come ask you to give some of that money to somebody. And the more you have, the more he's going to ask for.
Wow.
And I know that because, let me tell one story. I could tell several, but I'll tell one. When my wife turned 40, I did not know I married a hot rod girl. I thought I was a hot rodder, but she wasn't. But then I found out she actually likes cars too. And
Wow.
so I did some research. And I'm like, you know what? We could buy a 1969 Corvette we could afford that. We could buy that. As soon as I said those words, she got a little twinkle in her eye. And I couldn't let it go. Like there are certain things you don't want to say around my wife because she'll latch onto them like a pit bull and won't let go. And this was one of them. So once I said we could buy a Corvette, she would not stop thinking about it. And so for her 40th birthday, I bought her a Corvette.
Wow.
Several weeks later, we got invited to go to a missionaries visit at this house, and it was some missionaries from it was Zambia, Africa, and they came in, and there were probably 20 couples there, maybe 10 to 20 couples, and we're all sitting around, and then they started talking about their needs that they had as missionaries. And as they're sitting there, one of them said, "Yeah, we use our vehicles. There's a lot of AIDS death in Zambia, Africa, because the police officers get moved around because they don't want to have corruption in Zambia. And because of that, they'll get these venereal diseases and they'll transmit them around the country because the workforce is moving. So there's a lot of AIDS, HIV deaths. And so they use their vehicle to perform the funerals because they don't have funeral homes or stuff like that. So they
Wow.
would basically work with the communities to bury the people that were dying. And he said, and our car is not useful anymore. It's expired. So I'm sitting there. I text my wife and I text her. I said, hey, I think we're supposed to help these people and support them with their car needs. Do you agree with that? Is that what you're hearing in the spirit? She goes, yeah, I agree with you. I think we're supposed to. So I raised my hand. She's in the back of in the kitchen with the ladies, and I'm sitting in the couch in the dining room den. I raised my hand and I said, hey, how much would it cost to help you get a car? And I'm thinking like $5,000. This is like Africa. You can go buy a car, get something, it's not gonna be much. And I kid you not. They respond, they said $20,000.
What?
Okay. Now here's the deal. That was the exact same amount that I had paid for the Corvette just a few weeks earlier.
Oh,
The
wow.
exact same amount. And I'm like, all right, we're writing this check. Like we're writing this check. And
Amazing.
I don't know that they got any more money that night, but they got that 20 grand. And
Wow.
I'm gonna tell you, the Lord is gonna, you're gonna be tested. Like that's the thing about wealth. That's why you have to make sure your heart and your mind is in the right place, because God is not going to take it away from you.
I'm confused about something. Had
Yep.
you had already bought the car for her
Yep.
for her birthday. So this was an additional check that you were
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That $20,000 Corvette cost me 40 grand total.
Wow. Wow. I feel like maybe we should be interviewing you for faithful funders instead of faithful founders. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, God, here's the thing, it's you can't promise somebody that they're going to build wealth, and you can't say that they're poor because they've been wrong or evil. The best you can do is steward your money well. There are principles you apply to your finances. They're repeatable. Like I could tell you story after story of people I've had on my podcast that went from broke to millionaire. Don't make excuses on being broke. Anybody, I'm going to tell you, anybody can become a millionaire. Anyone can do it. And when I say that, it's harder for certain walks of life, like if you're in another country, but it's still doable because we have an international digital economy now. It's all interactive. So you can work over in the Philippines, make money, and make good money. It's doable. I mean, I've talked to people who were in Chinese concentration camps during high school, came to America with $50 in their pockets, and now they're millionaires. So
Wow.
don't the excuses you tell yourself are what you tell yourself to make yourself feel better about not being there. Like, oh, the rich people got lucky. Not true. I didn't get lucky. I put a lot of hard work in. And I guarantee you all the other people. Now, there might be cases where some people, I don't want to say get lucky, but they're in the right place, the right time. But they
Or
still,
inherit.
yeah, or inherit. But here's the thing: 80% of millionaires are first generation millionaires.
Mm,
They didn't inherit it. They earned it. They earned
wow.
80% of that comes from The Millionaire Next Door. If you want to read that book, it's a really good book. But anyway, I can talk forever on this stuff, as you can tell, Tammy. I'm very passionate about it.
I love it. And I'm so glad that you've taken the time to do that. I want to make sure people can reach you with questions. So the best email media at tonybradshaw.com.
Yeah, that one will work, or info@tonybradshaw.com. Either one of those are good email addresses for me.
Okay, awesome. And then your website is tonybradshaw.com. So if people want to get on there, so you're a financial coach as well. So you help people get there, and you're personal with them, right? And you're putting on events and all of that to help folks reach that milestone. What a huge milestone that would be.
Yeah, and financial coach, business coach. We have a digital company as well, but the coaching stuff is really important. Here's the last piece of wisdom, if I can.
Yes.
What I found in coaching people is most people, they're stuck, right? And it's because they haven't developed the muscles to be able to create a vision for their future, something different than they already know, right? If you plug into Dave Ramsey stuff, it's a great material. You're basically borrowing Dave's vision for your future. That's what makes it so powerful, because you don't have a vision for your finances, so your finances are lost. But when you plug into Dave's, he's saying, hey, you can be debt free. So he's helping you create a vision. It's a debt-free vision. What I want to create for people is a millionaire vision to go, hey, I did it. You can do it too. let me help encourage you. And then there's different ways you can get there. But I like to call myself a millionaire planner. I don't like financial plans. I like millionaire plans because millionaire plans have very specific goals. And that's what I try to do with people.
And one of the beautiful things that Dave Ramsey talks about, Tony, is that once you achieve a level of wealth, then it's like you can just have fun giving it away. Like what you were talking about, with being able to help those missionaries with a $20,000 check. That's amazing. And the joy that that brings for the people in need. But apparently that kind of giving provides a lot of joy for you once you've reached that certain level of wealth, right?
Yeah, and it's not about having it all figured out. Like I said earlier, it's about getting moving in the right direction. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to agree with everything I've said today. But just get moving in the right direction, and the rest, God will work it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking your time today to be with us. Hang on just a little bit. I'm just going to do a little close here and just let people know that I'm grateful for you to watch us today. Thank you for watching us. And I want to make sure that you know that this is the Faithful Founders Show. So we have Faithful Founders, but we also have Faithful Funders Show. This is for Christian investors. And then we have Faithful Filmmakers as well. And so these are Christians making great movies and shows, producing great shows out there. We need to really step up our game. There are some amazing Christian producers and filmmakers out there doing a wonderful job, and it looks really good. But overall, for a long time, Christian media and entertainment has had a bad rap for low quality. So let's increase our quality. Let's do a lot better there. So if you have or know faithful filmmakers, if you know faithful funders who have money and they're looking for a place to invest their money, if you know faithful founders who have created amazing businesses that are Christians that love the Lord with all their heart, send them my way. You can send them to info at watchdfe.com, info@watchdfe.com. So send them over here and we'll interview them. We'll get their information out there so that they can be an inspiration to God's people as we fight this culture war and the terrible messages that are out there damaging the hearts and the minds of our Christians and our families. So let me bring this back. I don't know if I can bring that back here, but I am so grateful for you guys being a part of this and watching. And please spread this around, spread the word about the shows that we're doing. And let's create a little community here with Christians who are doing kingdom business in the media and entertainment field and creating great businesses as well. All right, take care. God bless you. See you next time.